can we do in 2012 just to clean up what's there? Anything we can do on the 2012 side will make the upgrade go a lot smoother. If you're not currently using version control, I would definitely recommend thinking about jumping into that realm now. You're going to have to use it for Dynamics 365, and it has a lot of benefits for your 2012 environment as well. If nothing else, start learning about it, learn how it works. If you have developers that are used to C#, they're probably going to know how to do a lot of that anyway. So throw that out there before I jump to the next slide. The next big thing that we need to do to kind of do some code cleanup is we need to get down to one layer and one model. This is the same thing that we recommended even back when we would do 2012 upgrades from R2 to R3. The major benefit we get is it reduces the number of models that we have to do upgrades for. If you have 3 models sitting in your system or 3 layers, layers tend to be more of the king in the 2012 world. You would have to move each one of those layers into your upgrade piece. The fewer of those we have, the easier it is to run everything through. Again, it makes for TFS integration a lot simpler. So what you'll want to do is take any code that you might have like in the user layer and move that up to the cust layer. If you have stuff in var layer, you might want to move everything from user to cust var, all the hotfix layers as well, up into your var layer. Again, our end goal is to be at one layer and one model as well. So all of your customizations sit in one area. It's not a hard process. It is a little time consuming, being completely honest, but again, it's not hard to do. The major thing I'll emphasize is we really do not want anyone having code in the user layer. User layer is meant to be kind of like a sandbox area for devs, where if you need to try something and then delete it back out, if you already have code in the user layer, you lose a lot of that capabilities. So again, the main thing I want, if I can emphasize anything with this, we want to get down to one layer, one model, and have absolutely no code in your user layer and model. Along with that, we also want to go through and fix up any best practice errors that we may have introduced with our customizations. You might actually get some nice performance increases just by doing this. I put on the screen here a list of some of the more common best practice failures that we tend to see. If you don't know what your best practice failures are getting, you can set your compiler level to level 4. If you have in-house developers, they'll know how to do that, and do a full compile, and you'll get a full list of all the best practices that you've generated throughout the existence of your system. I'll put a heads up on there. Microsoft did ship quite a few in 2012. So you can ignore the ones that you didn't introduce, but you definitely want to go through and fix things like missing field lists on queries. You can actually get a really nice performance boost simply by fixing the queries that you've written to include field lists. If you're currently using a label file in your AX 2012 system, you might have had a few places that people forgot to add the labels in, and they're using hard-coded strings. You'll want to go in and fix those just to make sure everything is uniform. Bad tab indentations, fields and tables not in field groups. Again, this is a pretty common best practice failure. You'll want to go in and just get cleaned up. A couple of ones that won't necessarily get caught by the compiler, but we usually recommend going in and fixing anyway. As you're walking through some code, if you notice anything is using a base type instead of an EDT, as an example, a field on a table where it doesn't have a EDT that relates with it, instead it's just using a string type, you'll want to switch that over to using an EDT instead. So you might have to create a new one or find one that fits. Lastly is code comments. This is something that I know my team pushes very heavily for. All of the code that you write in your system should be commented with some kind of a header and footer tag around it to let you know that it is your code, that it's customized by either your developers or your partner's developers. This overall makes any upgrade process a lot easier because you can easily see what has changed between the base code and the code that was added. The other piece I'll throw into here too, again, kind of a nice piece about using source control. All that commented out code that you have sitting in your system right now, you'll want to, if you're using version control, you can just delete all of it. You check everything in. There's no point to keeping that history anymore of all this commented out code. You want to go clean all that stuff up. So you can go kind of help clean up some of your code that way as well.